So yeah, I'm Qianwen Wang. I'm a third-year assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. My research focuses on AI interoperabilities and human-AI collaboration. So a lot of questions people ask me, the first thing is like, why? Why we want to have AI explainabilities and human-AI collaboration? Isn't building a bigger, more complicated model with more data just solve all questions? I think in some extent it is true. Like you can definitely have like a model have higher accuracies on the benchmark tasks, but it is not necessarily true on most of the real world applications when people don't simply want results, but also want a results that they can interpret and also test. That is also not true when people try to working on high stake and critical domains, where the domain knowledge and the context knowledge are also very important. Here are some results from previous studies that we are doing when we try to building an AI model for drug repurposing. And basically, like you can see here, given a disease, the model will just predict a known list of drug candidates for treating this disease. And then we see like all of them have like pretty high scores. And that would be very challenging for the domain experts to decide among all those promising drugs, what are the top choice that are most promising to conduct some following up evaluations. And those evaluations are typically super expensive. Like you not only need to do in-depth studies, but also multiple rounds of clinical trials. And this also we also witness sometimes even a model having a very high accuracy, it can get some basic domain knowledge wrong. Again, in the same context of we try to predict the drug for this specific disease. And here is our explanations we extracted from the model. Sometimes those predictions is correct. For example, here and this drug is predicted because the target proteins and the disease target proteins are actually related to the same disease, or like those proteins are related to the same biological process. But sometimes we also say that it is simply predicted because the target proteins are co-located in the same anatomy. And that's definitely not a causal relationships, and we shouldn't trust a models X like that. So to solve those questions, my studies try to first provide explanations for the users to understand why models make a certain predictions, and also try to help the users to integrate the knowledges into the model to not only improve the explanations, but also improve the model performance. When we're talking about explanations, we don't just want explanations that have like 5% high scores on benchmark evaluations. We want explanations that can really be interpreted by our domain users and that can fit into their workflows. And I think that is something really important. In one of the previous studies, we have tried to generate different type of explanations and provide it to our end users, and asking those domain users to collaborate with those explainable AI systems and then decide and finish some tasks together. And you can see here on these like orange dots, which are the explanations provided by our methods. We are significantly better in the accuracy and the confidence when users use them to finish tasks. But we also have witnessed that sometimes if we just randomly choose explanation methods, like those green dots, they're like very classic explanation methods that are based on attention. They're like almost no difference when we providing the users of the non-explanation baseline, when users just say the predictions and the confidence scores. And I think those things really demonstrate like not all explanations are created equally. And by providing the right explanations to the users, we can really make a difference regarding how they are using the AI systems and finish the tasks. And then with those good explanations that the users can tell whether it is correct or not correct, users can provide feedback that represent the domain knowledges and be integrated to the model to improve its performance. And those type of knowledge, including both that are explicitly provided by the users. So for example, when we're doing like breast cancer specimen classifications, there might some concept like tissue densities, like the colors that are very important for the classifications, and we can inject those type of knowledge to the model's improvements. And at the same time, it also includes knowledges that are explicitly learned by the AI models from the user's interactions. So you can see here, like in an interface we built by asking users to to choose the cell clusters that are most similar to each other based on the gene expressions. We're able to integrate those knowledges and to improve the model's performance. And also there's some interesting here is that, so we also, in this system, we also provide some like auto suggestions about how users can inject the models. And it's typically like those, so here's like all the suggestions accepted, and then here's like part of them are accepted. And you can see only when it achieves the best performance when users are using their own knowledge and try to select the most useful suggestions from the AI that we got higher performance. And I think those questions are even more important in the current stage of large language models. Yes, you can ask large language models to give you explanations, but they are not definitely useful, and they might be wrong, or they may be like as same as a non-explanation baseline. And yes, you can write a known prompt to detail all your domain knowledges and input them into a large language models. But again, none of us want to write a super known and complicated prompts. And how to ask the models to learn those knowledge from context, from implicit knowledge more effectively can be very important. Okay, and sorry. Okay. And lastly, about collaborations. So what I can contribute and what I want to learn from the domain collaborations. So I think as with most of the CS faculties, yes, I can help with AI model development and adoptions. And I think especially I'm more familiar with high dimensional data and the graph data. And I think maybe some unique side from me is that I can also help building human AI collaborative systems. I can provide explanation AI methods. I also want to highlight that my group and myself are really good at software development, open source, and hosting publicly accessible demos that everyone can use and interact with. So you can see most of my previous studies, we have open source websites, documentations, and some of them are still continue used by our collaborators from outside. And from the domain collaborations, I think I really want to understand some of the interesting or unique data tasks and case studies that current AI cannot perfectly solve. And I'm also very interested in about the alignments or misalignment between the AI knowledge and the domain knowledge. And I think to do that, it might include you can help me to better interpret AI generated explanations, whether they are domain meaningful or not. And we can co-design some tasks and benchmarks, and also how to better integrate the domain knowledge into the design and the refinement of AI models. Okay, and I think that's all from my side.
Small question.
Oh, yeah.
AI action plan, remember, mentioned the word interpretability rather than explainability. Is there a difference between the two?
So that's a good question. So I think I think in some papers they are used interchangeably. But if you are asking more from human AI collaborative perspective, so we often think AI explainabilities is that we have some algorithms, some techniques that can extract explanations and other additional information from the AI. And we are talking about interpretabilities. We're talking about the next step, like when the humans can really interpret those explanations and have some like actionable insights, and how those things will influence the behaviors and the decision-making process.
You talked about the AI model giving the explanations and and then the knowledge being integrated back. Can you give example of that? Would it be like you get the explanation and you see something wrong in the explanation and you try to provide knowledge back?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just, yeah, so what, yeah, exactly. So in
Yeah.
the framework.
Yeah, okay, guess I can say let's just maybe we can start from like this example.
Okay.
So the AI makes predictions and it recommend some drugs to treat a certain disease. And by providing explanations, we can tell you, okay, what are those reasons that the models making such predictions? And so, for example, here we can say these explanations might be less meaningful because it's based on this the traveling proteins just share the same locations, and that's not very reasonable. And the user might be able to say, click here, just say, okay, I want to delete these types of explanations. And also some background. So here we're using graph neural networks to treat the model. And this type of feedbacks can be used as a penalties for the weight inside the graph neural networks. Like this type of message passing shouldn't be happening in most of the predictions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, and I was relating back to the previous talk, that is your the inverse modeling and when the models you're building the model. Is there a counterpart here? That is the model is making a prediction, okay, and with some explanations. And if the explanation is wrong, then you know that something is wrong. I'm just trying to see whether the methodology that you're developing might be relevant for the previous study, or for that matter, any other physical problem. So that since you're here only for a few minutes.
No, that's right. Yeah. It seems, I think getting the human response might be hard. Just because there's too much data. So like you can't get feedback on every collision, that would be like billions of things. But just the idea of the metrics to make it, the explanation, I think that can be quite interesting. Because sometimes, we develop some model and people ask, okay, so, but what is it learning? What kind of physics is it learning about what you're doing here? This is maybe for a much more simple model than what I presented, but where we use the high level objects and want to say, is this our signal or not? People often ask, okay, what is this really learning? And then we always have to struggle a little bit about, okay, which variable that you fed in was most important or this or that, but there's probably better ways, and maybe that's something that we could discuss.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned a good point regard. So I think there are some contexts like the place relatively sparse. So actually we also do some per aggregations and filtering so that the most relevant and promising explanations are show up. I think behind there we have about 100 similar things. And at the same time, I also feel like these things can be done semi-automatically if you have some format of your domain knowledge that can be directly compared with the AI's explanations, so that we can do some filtering and aggregations, and only the part that's most uncertain, that is the most critical, that requires human verifications will be presented to the humans.
I would just add to Naja, I think you can disagree if you like, but in physics, I think many, if not most physicists absolutely hate black boxes.
Oh, yes.
So to us, that's a huge turnoff, because for us, I mean, all our purpose is to understand what's actually happening. So
That's very important.
Connecting with this is, I mean, that could make a big difference and would certainly help bring physics into the fold.
Yeah, thanks, Qianwen. I know you have a large body of excellent work and working with scientists, doctors, and also general public. I'm just interested and curious, compared to general public versus scientists, do you think there are some insights you have discovered which are specific to extract knowledge from scientists or explanations compared to, let's say, because there is somewhat more domain knowledge on that?
So I think that's a good question. I think that based on my personal experience, I would prefer working with domain scientists compared with working general public. So, when we're working with general public, the only the common method for doing evaluations is doing crowdsourcing. So we're using something like a Polyfic, Amazon Tech to just we post the questions and then we provide explanations and then we're asking the general public to do some tasks. And I think most of them are just not clear enough about the AI models. And sometimes they do not have the right type of knowledge that are required to improve the AI. And it makes it really hard to find the right group of users when we're talking about general publics. That those type of users they really care about the AI models. They really have the knowledge to improve the AI. And I think these are type of characteristics. These are type of things that you can typically find when you are collaborating with a domain experts. They truly care about the AI models, and they have so many things they want to share with you about these AI predictions and explanations.